What's going on, everyone? It's KDZen with KBMOD.com, and today we're going to be looking at Outlast 2. It's been almost 4 years since the first game came out in 2013, and I feel like the devs have taken all the time they needed to focus on this game and make it one of the best sequels of all time. Because as a sequel, it should expand on the game and also stay true to what made the first game great, and I feel it does all of these things in spades. But this video isn't going to be a review, and there are a couple of reasons for that. The first one being that I've actually not finished the game. Horror games, I will admit I'm a little bit squeamish, and as you might expect, Outlast 2 is pretty goddamn scary. So that'll take a couple more days of righteous cleansing after what I've seen in this game. And second of all, I feel like not enough people are excited for this game as there should be. A couple of weeks ago, I ran a small poll on my Twitter page asking people how excited they were for the sequel, and the results were pretty surprising to me, with only 20% of people saying that they were excited for the game. So the goal of this video is to raise that percentage. I'm going to be going over 5 reasons why Outlast 2 is a fantastic sequel that's worthy of your attention. Now, if you remember when the first Outlast dropped, that game had fantastic visuals, and that stays true with Outlast 2 for our first point, that the game is just absolutely beautiful. Whether you're running through detailed villages, past mangled corpses, the enemies themselves, the details in the environments, this is one of the most beautiful games I've ever played, honestly. You wouldn't expect it from a game like this, but there's just so much detail put into the world, and so much careful attention put into the scenery. With about 5 hours of gameplay clocked in, there's not a single moment I felt that the graphics could have been improved. Although I will admit most of the game is a little too dark for my tastes, but the visuals and art design of this game are just as bleak and effed up as the first game, so Outlast fans will be happy to know that this game isn't pulling any punches. And that brings us into point number 2, that Outlast 2, like the first game, is a very brutal experience, and you will feel very uncomfortable. Throughout my entire playthrough so far, one phrase is echoed in my mind from start to finish, and that's, I want to go home. This game does such a good job of making you feel out of your comfort zone, completely out of your element, with the only real solace you can find hiding in a barrel or hiding in some closet. And that's something the first Outlast did too, when you're stuck in the insane asylum with no way to get out. So I'm really happy to see that oppressive feeling return for the sequel. And that extends to the sound design as well, with the haunting chirps of violin, with the strong acoustics coming in, and also to the really unnerving religious chants of these villagers in this game. The atmosphere in this game is incredibly top-notch. I wanted to get that out of the way first and foremost. Now, talking about the game itself, that brings us into point number 3, arguably the most important point on this list, being that it expands on the gameplay mechanics of the first game. Now, I'm assuming we all know the mechanics of the camera from the first game, being that you can see in the dark, but you have to rely on batteries, finding them in the environment, and managing your camera's battery life. This returns in Outlast 2, of course, but the camera itself is made much more important. An added feature for your camera is a directional microphone, which you can kind of radar around whatever dank barrel you're hiding in so you know when the right time is to leave. There are notes scattered through the game as well that you can pick up and take a picture with your camera to analyze later, and that extends even to when you find certain gruesome scenes or important locations of this game. You can pull out your camera, start recording, and keep it for later for your main character to reflect on. Speaking of the main character, that brings us into our 4th point that shows that Outlast 2 has pulled a Dead Space 2, and your main character is no longer a silent protagonist. I'm not gonna lie, so far the character does feel like just some schmuck that's been pulled into this, but the game doesn't make you feel like he's just some schmuck. He's very talkative, he's very emotive, and the main character does have some important backstory related to the plot of this game, but I'm not going to get into that because of spoilers. The final point on this list is a little bit abstract, but try to bear with me here. So we know the first Outlast took place in the insane asylum, and you mainly just stuck to going through these corridors and rooms, and it sort of felt like a pretty linear level design. And Outlast 2 kind of corrects that with its locations. What I'm getting at is that the game feels familiar yet new. The game still has that compelling exploration when you're searching through the environment, desperately searching for batteries, but now you're looking for bandages as well to heal your wounds, and instead of being in these really narrow hallways, your gameplay has been expanded into these open villages and open areas where you can search through multiple houses at once. It kind of depends on the environment, but what I'm trying to say is that it doesn't feel as repetitive as the first game. It doesn't feel as samey as the first game. I can really appreciate taking that tried and true gameplay of the first game, throwing it into a completely different environment, and seeing just how well it works, just like the first game. And those are 5 reasons why I think you would appreciate picking this game up on April 25th. This isn't like a sponsored video or anything. I know I really suck this game's dick, but if you're a fan of horror games, if you love that thrill, you want that compelling, gruesome story, that artistically crafted experience, you owe it to yourself to play Outlast 2. A full review is coming to the site soon, so I hope you'll stick around for that. Be sure to go to KBMOD.com for all the best gaming news and reviews, follow us on Twitter, listen to the podcast, join in our community nights, and stay tuned for the next video.